Welcome to Solutionaries, the show where we celebrate creative thinkers and doers in our community. Hey everyone, thanks for joining us. I'm Lewis Bolden. In today's episode, you're going to see a few of our latest stories focused on problem solvers in our community and the solutions they're bringing to you. Stories like this one. A transit activist in Detroit, Michigan is going the extra mile by helping out members of his community. In this story, the Solutionaries team takes a look at what the resident is doing to make it a little easier to get around the Motor City. And a little later on, you'll get a chance to see how a goldfish, that's right, a goldfish is making a difference for kids in the courtroom. But we're starting our show today in South Florida, where according to projections from NASA and NOAA, sea levels are rising at record rates. But in this story, the Solutionaries team takes a look at what some cities are doing to rise above a big problem.
South Florida is one of a kind. With this kind of music, food, and flair, there's no question why so many people are flocking here. But as the population and skyscrapers continue to rise, so do the sea levels and floodwaters.
High tide.
High tide. That's salt water.
Show me, what's your flooding problem? What happens?
Okay, I get the back. When it's a lot of wind, the back is flooding and I make the water go this way. You know, the street is full of water.
We met Luckner Germinal as he was renovating his Miami home, which he's owned since 1994. He's about 2.5 miles from Biscayne Bay. And flooding here is getting worse. So bad, it sometimes causes his septic tank to back up into his home. The human waste inside the house.
Exactly.
All over here.
Yeah, water.
All
That's
over
why
here.
you see I get the storage, you know, I put it in the block.
So you put this shed up higher.
Yeah, if not, the water goes inside where here.
South Florida is experiencing more nuisance flooding than ever before. During storms, of course, and on days with high tides. That's called sunny day flooding. The problems ultimately trace back to torrential rains and sea level rise. Projections from NASA and NOAA are alarming. Levels are rising at record rates, and if we keep this pace, much of the state's coastal areas could be underwater by 2060. By 2100, major cities could be unlivable. South Florida is just the tip of the iceberg, a canary in a coal mine for a global problem.
South Florida is one of the most vulnerable areas of the country that's already experiencing. Unlike many other parts of the country, the problem is already here. We are already seeing the flooding twice a day during fall. So this is one of the most vulnerable places in the country, but also probably in the world. I have a long name, Dr. Jayanta Obesekara. I'm a research professor in the Institute of Environment Sea Level Solutions Center.
For solutions to sea level rise, we went to the Sea Level Rise Solutions Center at Florida International University in Miami.
We are trying to develop solutions for not only for now, but also for the future when we know that the problems are going to increase in magnitude.
FIU deploys these autonomous boats into the bay, measuring temperatures, salt levels, and pollution. Floodwaters run off into the waterways, bringing with them chemicals and trash, which kills fish and plants, making the situation even worse. Education, getting people involved, is key.
I think we are not doing enough to manage the greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, and that is ultimately the long-term solutions. But I think along with that, we need to get the younger generation and everybody involved in participating.
While climate change can be a politically charged topic, cities across the southeastern U.S. are noticing the situation getting worse right before their eyes. In Hollywood, Florida, it's all hands on deck.
How do the residents in this area respond? What do they have to say?
The residents are welcoming this improvement because this is something that affects them on a day-to-day basis.
The city's Community Redevelopment Agency is pouring money into road projects. This boat ramp right next to a low-lying neighborhood was just the start.
There goes the water, like a babbling brook, down onto Polk Street, like a little mini rapid. Salt water. Not good.
Do you worry about them with the future?
I worry about the future of my children. I do. And the future of the next generation. Yeah, I do.
A solution is lifting the streets, literally. It's extremely expensive, but they see it as necessary, even if the state isn't changing its roads.
So you can imagine if this is the roadway and I live here and I'm at the same level and I raise up my street, well, what happens to my house?
Homeowners aren't going to be happy about getting water.
Right. So what we do is we have something called harmonization. And what harmonization is, we go towards their edge of their property and we gently slope down to the sidewalk so we don't create any adverse condition on the private property. That means that each street and each property is a custom solution.
That's just the start of it. Better drainage, dams, pumps, valves, higher seawalls, costly projects with help from the state and federal government. FEMA is granting more than $150 million for flood mitigation in Southeast Florida. Geography differs, even across the state. There's no one-size-fits-all solution, so each community is having to figure out what works for them. What works in Hollywood doesn't necessarily work in Tampa or Jacksonville.
I think the projections are certainly scary. A lot of them are based on models, and predictions. I do believe that provided the right implementation of master plans, whether they are for stormwater protection, I think elevating the seawalls and creating a tighter fit, which the city already began doing with this project, I think those numbers should be better.
However, there's concern less affluent areas without as many financial resources will struggle to keep up. That's one of many limitations that make this not an easy problem to solve. For example, just building a wall along the coast won't cut it. Underground, Florida is porous with limestone, causing saltwater intrusion. It's seeping up, bubbling onto ground level. That could end in tragedy. Investigators believe saltwater may have weakened the structure for the Surfside condos north of Miami Beach. They came crashing down in the middle of the night in 2021, killing 98 people. Many areas that people live in South Florida were not livable 100 years ago. In the early 1900s, developers dredged the Everglades, an expansive wetland and slow-moving river, to build farms and homes. That's just the beginning of human harm that we're all paying for today. Excessive energy use, planes, cars, ships, and factories are harming the environment, sharing the blame for flooding and sea level rise. Increased tropical activity, including hurricanes, add fuel to the fire.
That I think is really important to underscore is that these issues aren't isolated to the coastal area. In our community, we actually have about 1,800 miles of canals that are part of our drainage and water management system. And that entire system was designed with the intent of being able to drain from inland to the coast, or from a higher elevation to a lower elevation. And sea level rise reverses that equation.
Dr. Jennifer Jurado is a resiliency officer for Broward County. Governments are hiring scientists like her to find sustainability solutions, knowing everyone in the community plays a part in reducing the problems. The issue continues to creep up the coast. Jacksonville and Tampa have widespread flooding. So does Orlando. St. Augustine's historic district often turns into a river.
The condition is ultimately driven by the amount of warming that takes place and the amount of CO2 that's contributing to that warming, and that's a function of primary sources for us: transportation, which accounts for about 50% of our regional and local emissions, and the other 50% is pretty much shared between commercial and residential real estate. So your opportunities for intervention are largely about energy efficiency, renewable energy, clean energy.
South Florida, with a population of more than 6 million people and growing, could be foreshadowing what's to come for the rest of the world. And with 1,200 new residents moving to Florida every day, and companies from across the world investing big here, solutions, big and small, will have to keep up with a changing climate. In Miami, with photojournalist Josh Morgan, I'm Vic Michelucci for Solutionaries.
I lose my mind when it don't fly. I don't miss fire, yes, hardwired day and night. I get my way. I'm a wild guy, live a wild life. I lose my mind when it don't fly. I don't miss fire, yes, hardwired, and I always have the stakes. Cause yeah.
Welcome back to Solutionaries, the show where we celebrate creative thinkers and doers in our community.
Cows. They produce milk and food, and they're really adorable. But what they belch up is a big contributor to climate change.
It's really the burps and not the farts. That has been one of
Really, it is the burps,
it is
not
the burps.
farts.
The issue as far as methane goes, yes.
We're going to show you how researchers here in the state of Florida are responding to this problem, how their response works, what they're learning from it, and how there's still some limitations that they're trying to figure out.
We're at North Florida Research and Education Center, and this is one of the research and education centers of UF.
And Dr. Nicholas DiLorenzo has been researching cattle on this land just outside Tallahassee for the last 14 years.
So here, what we have here is one of our research pastures. This is part of our herd. So
they're saying hi.
They're saying hi. They know the news are here, so they also want to be famous.
About 800 head of cattle call these pastures home, and they eat a lot.
What's in here?
So this is the whole plant, corn or sorghum, chopped and put in a bag to ferment, basically to pickle over a certain period of time, typically 60 days or more.
Yeah.
And then when it comes out, it has that smell that cows love it. It smells good, like a fermented feed, basically.
But traditional cow feed like this causes cows to burp. And that burp is full of methane, which is the second largest contributor to climate warming. One methane molecule traps 28 times more heat than a molecule of carbon dioxide. This satellite imaging from NASA shows how methane gas in the atmosphere has doubled over the last 200 years. Researchers estimate about a third of that comes from agriculture and livestock.
The burps are silent, right?
The burps are very silent. You'll never, like right now, standing they're burping, and sometimes while they're eating, they're burping, and that's how they're releasing.
That's a skill.
The methane. Yeah, that is a skill. That is really a skill.
We see it everywhere. Record-breaking heat waves in the United States and China.
President Biden signed an international pledge to reduce methane emissions by 30% by the year 2030.
Last year, I signed into law in the United States the largest investment ever anywhere in the history of the world to combat the climate crisis and help move the global economy toward a clean energy future.
$5 million of that investment has been granted to DiLorenzo and his team at the University of Florida. And they're going to work with other researchers at Auburn University and Clemson. And together, they're going to create feed additives to reduce the amount of methane that cows produce and then test that feed here. They will then measure how much methane the cow burps up in one of these machines.
What we have here, one of our most common analyses is volatile fatty acids, VFA for short.
Samples from inside the cow's stomachs will also be tested in a lab in what DiLorenzo calls a cow in a bottle.
We have some sensors in here. This has a battery, and these sensors send a wireless signal to our home base, and a computer will track gas production of this vessel. So that would allow us to get the entire gas produced. All of that is collected into this bag. So while this is working,
you're hoping for less gas, right?
We are hoping for less gas, and particularly less of methane gas.
DiLorenzo says they're already on the right track, but they have to figure out which additive works the best and doesn't impact the taste of cow's milk or beef.
When it comes to navigating climate change and the world's future, do you see yourself as part of the solution to that?
Absolutely. Even though it's a small percentage compared to other areas, I don't think that we scientists and people working in the agricultural field should avoid that responsibility.
We cried a lot that first year. We cried a lot.
I'm very fortunate to be able to look into my mama's eyes and look at her with a different love.
It is immeasurable, the gratitude that we have for our caregivers.
It is not an easy fact to accept. You either already are or will likely become one of the millions of Texans who are caregivers for a sick or elderly family member. The focus often on the patient. The caregiver and their enormous tasks are rarely seen or acknowledged, forcing them into isolation, depression, and health deterioration. So what help do they need? What gaps in the system are holding them hostage? And what support can they access at any time? Solutionaries works to answer those questions.
There was an overwhelming amount of emotions.
We cried a lot that first year. We cried a lot.
I had to retire my job of 34 years.
Their loved ones' diseases, ages, and outcomes are different, but the words these caregivers use to describe their experiences are so similar.
We've been married 46 years.
Jim Calhoun's wife, Pam, was diagnosed with Alzheimer's 12 years ago. While she still interacts with people.
Thank you. Red is my favorite. How did you know, Pam? Red is my favorite.
But she cannot have full conversations.
We're just eating Skittles.
He felt alone, exhausted, and depressed until he reached out to the Alzheimer's Association, which led him to a support group.
This past 6-7 months, it's been hell. I'm not gonna lie.
They even gave him advice when he made the gut-wrenching decision to move his wife to a memory care center.
It was really awful, but and I said I couldn't go through this.
That's because he was advised to do his homework and visited 5 centers multiple times before choosing the landing at Stone Oak. And he says Pam is doing great there.
Let me see. Is it good?
The big issue he sees is with insurance coverage.
We need insurance companies to allow us to pay for this type of care.
For other dementia caregivers, even if they did have insurance, they're not really open to the idea of nursing homes.
Mama, I love you. So then she says, I love you back. Night, okay?
Minerva Longoria's 92-year-old mother, Minnie, was diagnosed with dementia 4 years ago. And when she looked for care facilities, she wasn't happy with what she saw.
The short staff and also COVID going around, flu. It's also fear of the caregiving quality in the nursing homes.
That's why she's thrilled to see House Bill 1673 just passed in Texas, which requires more training for residential center employees to improve the quality of care. In Texas, there are 1.5 million dementia caregivers that provide over $24 billion in unpaid care. Longoria could have been one of them, but found out that she could get paid for caregiving. But that income is just $10.60 an hour with no benefits.
They should definitely be paid more.
Ginny Funk has been a caregiver, but is also the director of programs for the Alzheimer's Association South Texas chapter.
We refer to the Area Agency on Aging quite a lot. They get Older Americans Act funding that helps pay for some short-term respite, caregiving in the home.
And more progress is happening right now. The 2024-2025 state budget directed $5.5 million over the next 2 years to the Texas Department of State Health Services Alzheimer's Disease Program, which includes services for caregivers. Another expensive and long-term disease is ALS.
Being given a terminal diagnosis is shattering through the soul.
Juan Reyes got his full ALS diagnosis in 2015. The only thing Juan can move is one finger, meaning he needs 24/7 care.
We have our morning routine, and then I get him dressed. There's days we shower him, there's days we sponge bath him and get him dressed.
Juan's wife, Meg, has been a constant, unwavering support system. She's developed that confidence with constant involvement in the ALS Association and a number of support groups.
I work through IMALS. We have a mentor program.
Since Juan is a veteran, Meg has been asked to help set up a general caregiver support group at the VA. But that's just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the couple's involvement in furthering resources for families battling ALS. They constantly travel around the country advocating, including multiple trips to D.C. and the White House.
I think the biggest gap is the cost and not enough quality candidates out there. But if you work with a company that has caregivers, there's certain limitations, like if you want someone that's going to transport you, it's going to cost you more.
So Juan and Meg use their voices, and their voices are not quiet.
You have to be your own advocate sometimes.
Texas has the second largest population of ALS caregivers at 2.1 million, and the ALS Association Caregiver Needs Survey showed the most needed care programs are home visits and equipment loan programs.
There is no national network that anyone can tap to find the equipment.
That's why Meg and Juan are part of a grassroots effort in South Texas to coordinate equipment swaps between families. The diseases of ALS and Alzheimer's have in common the age of patients, typically older, while other diseases like cancer can leave patients caregiving for their younger kids. 10-year-old Charlotte Pollock is now a cancer survivor, but that's not what defines her.
Volleyball and playing with my friends.
But cancer did dominate her life for years, starting at the age of 9 months.
We found the first tumor on her adrenal gland, and they were able to remove that and no treatment was necessary.
But that cancer led to a more devastating diagnosis called Li-Fraumeni syndrome.
She's predisposed to cancer more so than other people would be.
And at 3 years old, they found a brain tumor, which required surgery and 18 months of chemo. This Zoom interview with Katie at home and Ryan at work as a firefighter, a realistic look into the family's divide and conquer attitude. They say they owe their success to their family, community, and to the American Cancer Society, all stepping in to guide them towards resources.
There's groups for everything on Facebook.
I've been a caregiver. I lost my mother in 1998 to breast cancer.
That's what led Jeff Bayless to become the executive director of the American Cancer Society South Region, offering services he wants families to know about. That includes a 24/7 care line, and they even just launched a new app called ACS Cares, a patient and caregiver support system right on your phone.
Well, you can call us in terms of transportation to get someone to treatment, lodging if you're being treated out of town. Our advocacy team is, at the federal level and in every state house, constantly trying to remove barriers to get navigation covered by insurance.
Navigation basically means caseworkers that help guide families through the complicated process.
This is something we'll do for the rest of her life. She'll have head-to-toe annual MRIs every 3 months.
If they have to face it again, they'll know where to turn.
I even have a memory of my dad
sleeping on the bench one night.
It's the essential tool for all caregivers to give care while also setting themselves free.
I'm very fortunate to be able to look into my mama's eyes and look at her with a different love.
But in the end, the most important thing they all have in common is that under all the heartache and stress is unwavering love.
It is immeasurable, the gratitude that we have for our caregivers.
For Solutionaries, I'm Courtney Friedman.
What's going on, everyone? I'm certified meteorologist Jonathan Kegas, and I hope that you are ready for updates on storm tracking, hurricanes, and all kinds of weather-related content coming to you on our YouTube channel, Just Weather. All you have to do is scan that QR code on the screen to like, share, and subscribe to all of our weather-related updates, stories, and video content. All right, now back to Solutionaries.
Welcome back to Solutionaries, the show where we celebrate creative thinkers and doers in our community.
Did you ever think you were going to have a goldfish in your courtroom?
Never. Giving kids a voice in the courtroom. That's what's happening at this courthouse here in Virginia. Many times in courtrooms across the country, judges make life-changing decisions without hearing what the kids want. But here, it's different. And one of the ways they're doing it is with a goldfish.
The system is very disempowering to the very children that it serves. Children have a voice, and it may not be always eloquent, and it may not always be what we want to hear, but they certainly have the right to be engaged in a process that relates to them and is all about them. I am Heather Ferguson. I am a juvenile and domestic relations district court judge here in Roanoke City. I try to imagine being a 13-year-old that has no say, and everybody is talking around me about what is going to happen.
Doing all of this work with kids and families as a lawyer, what was missing in that process?
Well, there was a lot missing. Truly, there was not a lot of engagement with children in the foster care process. Every child who is either before the court for foster care or for a child protective order is assigned a guardian ad litem to represent their interests. But it's different. That's speaking through another voice. And so it's a very different perspective than hearing from the child.
Talk to me about kids showing up at their hearings. That was very new for you.
Yes, as a lawyer, I did not have the best experience with that. My sense always was that kids who came to court and wanted to talk with the judge came with an agenda. Thanks to Judge Ferguson and others, I've come around. I'm Frank Rogers. I'm a judge of the Juvenile and Domestic Relations District Court for the City of Roanoke. I do think it's important to hear from kids, not in every case, and certainly not where we're going to sit them down in court between their two parents and ask them what their preference is. There are other ways to do that. I've come 180 degrees on that through this process. I think that's made me a better judge, and I think it's probably improved outcomes for my kids.
Alexis Witt was 13 when she first appeared in Judge Rogers' courtroom, but there were things going on at home that started coming out.
I mean, I came in here with charges and
You did?
all of that.
But no, I don't see bad kids. You know, I see kids who have had struggles, and you did, but you recognized that and helped me make an informed decision, and you turned it around. And that's what this is all about. Honestly, that's what keeps me coming back every day. This, when I call it the happy success stories, and certainly you're one of those for me.
Oh yeah, at first I was mad at him. I was always angry to come in this courtroom. But from his side, I looked like a bad kid. I looked like a kid that wanted to do wrong. And then CPS got involved. I started talking to my probation officer about what was going on at home, and he started to see more. I don't know what he saw in me, but he saw it. And he really gave me a chance. He looked at me, he was like, Alexis, he said, what do you want to do? I sat like this, just with my head down. I didn't care what happened to me at that point. I was like, you know what, whatever happens, happens. I can't do anything anymore. I fought for so long. And then he gave me that chance, and I bawled. Like, you don't understand that feeling. It's like all those years of like just being kept quiet but I was too scared to say anything because either my mom was always sitting there, and I never wanted to hurt her. I never wanted my mom to feel like she was a bad mom.
Too many times we don't think to ask the child. Because you're the one living this, you're the one having the experience. We ought to get your input before we make a decision. Now, I might not always agree with the child. I might think that what they want is not in their best interest and do something different, but I still want them to have input. And you did, and you were a great advocate for yourself.
Yeah.
I sat in your courtroom for several hours watching different things happen. I mean, we had like a tiny baby to teenagers, and you engaged all of them in different ways. What are you looking for when you're talking to those kids or watching little babies or whatever the case is?
There's a lot that you can learn. I think a lot of times judges, guardian ad litem say, well, I don't need to go look at an infant because they can't tell me anything. The reality is that infants tell us a ton. The infant that day clearly was comfortable with both foster parents, clearly was flourishing in their care. That's all very telling to me. I have also had infants who, when they come to court, immediately reach out, let's say for mom. The older ones, the 2, the 3, the 4-year-olds, they may not understand a lot of what's going on, but again, it's great to see them interact with the people in the courtroom. And then with the older children, particularly preteen and teenagers, you have the ones that are very engaged and want to tell you everything about themselves. And then again, you have the ones who really don't want to say anything and don't necessarily want to participate. They want to hear, they want to know, they want to be empowered, and they want to have a say if they want it.
Tell me where we're going.
To our conference room in the J&D Court clerk's office, where we keep our books for kids, and I'll show them to you.
So it's a whole library for kids.
It is. When we have kids who come in and express an interest in reading, we can let them take some of these books.
Tell me about the interaction when you get to hand this to a kid.
You see their face light up, and they're totally surprised, obviously, because they didn't come to court expecting to take something home with them. And some of them really like to read, and some of them genuinely are excited to have their own book to take home with. It's pretty cool.
So this is just another way that you're able to engage with kids.
And connect with them in a positive way. Yeah.
This is Bruno. Bruno, I've had him about 8 months.
Did you ever think you were going to have a goldfish in your courtroom?
Never. That would have never been something I would have even considered. There are some people who are probably naysayers about having a goldfish in the courtroom, but he certainly has been a very well-loved piece of this courtroom. Litigants, clients, attorneys, deputies, everybody is very engaged with Bruno and checks in on him, wants to know how he's doing. And I do hear a lot that the bubbles and the light are very soothing. So he seems to be doing his job quite well. I have always tried to have something. I typically give them a choice between a little animal or a Hot Wheel that they can take with them.
For kids who can't come to court, they can write a letter to the judge or color pictures. They can also make a video. What are the limitations when you're trying to put something like this into place?
Probably the biggest and the one that our family time team struggled with the most is the added, work for our family service specialists at DSS. They're already at capacity. I think when you buy into the notion, as most I think at DSS have, that's going to end in a better result for the child and the family, you work past that or you work through it.
We really have to be respectful of the mental health of some of these children. And oftentimes we don't know those mental health issues right off the bat. I will say one of the limitations is really deferring to other people, which sometimes is difficult as a judge.
What does all of this mean to you?
It makes my heart swell. I mean, that's the best way to say it. This is the way it's supposed to work, and this is what we were supposed to be doing all along, because I do think we are changing what's happening in the lives of these children, and for the better, and I can't imagine ever going back.
Well, it's no secret that the city of Detroit has had its fair share of bus problems over the years. The main company that services the city, DDOT, has a weekly on-time performance rate of about 67%. With that compared to other major cities like Atlanta, for example, with MARTA at 76%, that's a huge difference.
I've been out here for like maybe 20 minutes. I'm just trying to go up Woodward right up here to the plasma lab, and I've been sitting right here. Thank God it ain't raining or nothing.
The bus drivers, I don't know if they got their own agenda, or I don't know if they just having a bad day, but at the end of the day, we got places to be. You know, regardless if I'm trying to make it home or if I'm trying to make it to the next place I got to eat.
One man is doing all he can to make it easier on the residents of the city. If anyone knows just how hard it is to get around the Motor City without a car, it's brother Michael Cunningham.
They admit to be 64, 65% on time, and that's like a D. And a D with poor folks that are trying to climb up the ladder, the boss don't want to hear the bus was late again, right? So you get suspended.
He's gone to great lengths to help people by literally going the extra mile to help those who need it, driving people around free of charge.
Normally, if they say I don't have any money, I've been waiting a long time, and we establish it up front, it's a free ride. Male, female, disabled.
Candace Cooper is one of the people he helps on a routine basis.
I have definitely been graced with the presence of his awesome efforts. A couple of times I got a ride from Brother Cunningham in a clutch.
Over the years, she's documented her struggles with public transportation with her TikTok series called I'm Just Trying to Get There.
I'm just trying to get there on the Route 3 Grand River bus that's rolling.
I have been catching the buses in the city most of my years here, and there has been some times where I have walked some miles for lack of a bus rolling.
Another couple constantly helped out by Brother Cunningham is Eric Yancey and his girlfriend Shayla Moore.
They've been a real blessing. Help me get around, doctor's appointments. All right. I can't afford to get on the bus, so he help out a lot.
Both are expecting a child, which makes getting to those doctor appointments crucial.
It's pretty hard. Business, though, is a lot of people on the bus and a lot of smells and a lot of other things that people have. It's been one time that I waited a whole hour and a half for a bus.
Brother Cunningham has also been giving out free bus passes to riders for years and hand warmers for Detroit's brutal winters.
There you go. You have a good day.
Why are you doing this?
Love. Love is the new money. People have been donating, and I've been doing it on my own for years and being impoverished myself. So Councilman Young gave me like 20 cases of hand warmers, and he gave me gloves, cases and cases of it.
And let's just say the people are more than appreciative.
I love you. Oh, I love you. I felt good, didn't it?
The importance of his work echoed by Deputy Mayor Todd Bettison.
Brother Cunningham, selfless. I could go on and on. He's the type of individual that's out there day in, day out, winter, regardless of the month of the year.
He's insisting what Brother Cunningham is doing is actually making a difference.
He works with the people, and he's an advocate for just transit, DDOT. And so everybody who listens to our city council public hearings, or whether it's a mayor town hall meeting, Brother Cunningham will call in. You know his voice, and he's always giving great ideas. And being Deputy Mayor, Mayor Duggan, also, we find a lot of his ideas really good, and we actually implement quite a few of them.
But the good news is that DDOT services are actually getting better.
Sometimes it tends to run a little late here and there, but it's not as bad as it would be.
Shout out to DDOT bus system. They really have improved their service over these last, I'm gonna go with 6 months. Even the tracking system, our transit tracking system is more accurate. So it really helps us know when we need to be where we need to be so we can get to where we be.
Over the past few months, more drivers have been hired by the service with an increase in pay as an incentive to bring more people in.
With the addition of transit equipment operators and more vehicles being available to us, we've been able to make more pullouts every day, and more pullouts every day equate to greater on-time performance on the street.
But the work isn't quite done yet either. DDOT Interim Executive Director Michael Staley says there's still a long way to go.
We need to make it safer, We need to make it more on time, and we need to make it more customer oriented.
So what I want to see is DDOT being on time 85, 90%, which still probably is bad on a national level. But for Detroit, I've been at this a long time. If I see 90%, I'm gonna do a backflip with my handicapped self.
However, until DDOT is in that position, Brother Cunningham will still be there helping as many riders as he can in the meantime.
God is really making it easier to keep that mission going.
I lose my mind when it don't fly. I don't miss fire, yes, hardwired day and night. I get my way. I'm a wild guy, live a wild life. I lose my mind when it don't fly. I don't miss fire, yes, hardwired, and I always up the stakes. Cause yeah.
Welcome back to Solutionaries, the show where we celebrate creative thinkers and doers in our community.
Clinical depression is one of the leading causes of disability in the world. If you've had a loved one or known someone who struggled with depression, it can be a very disabling illness.
I just didn't care anymore. I just felt lost and like I just didn't want to live anymore.
Ketamine offers a chance for rapid symptomatic relief.
Normal life didn't seem as overwhelming.
You highly recommend it?
I do. At the right place.
Are you depressed? Maybe someone close to you is? According to the National Institute of Mental Health, more than 15 million adults in the U.S. experience regular feelings of depression. More and more research is being done here in Houston on ketamine as a potential treatment for depression and other psychiatric disorders. And we're going to introduce you to a woman who says it changed her life.
I had had anxiety starting in about 3rd grade, but this was way different.
Adelaide Blandford says the mounting anxiety she experienced after the birth of her son got so bad, it left her feeling overwhelmed and sad.
I'd be sitting on the couch and I'd look at my phone and I just didn't even have the energy to pick it up. Like I just didn't care anymore. I just felt lost and like I just didn't want to live anymore.
Medication and therapy wasn't enough.
It sounds like when your mom suggested you needed something more, you didn't resist and you didn't even hesitate.
I know depression is a real thing. I know anxiety is a real thing. I grew up in a family that definitely acknowledged it.
After spending 2 weeks as a patient in the Menninger Clinic in Houston and a thorough evaluation, her psychiatrist recommended she continue her treatment here with ketamine as part of an outpatient program.
How long has ketamine been used as a treatment for depression?
So the early studies were 07, right before 10.
Dr. Neil Puri is the director of outpatient services at the Menninger Clinic, where even more substantial research is being conducted on ketamine.
Clinical depression is one of the leading causes of disability in the world. If you've had a loved one or known someone who struggled with depression, it can be a very disabling illness. And standard treatments can often take months to work. That's a long time to suffer with an illness. Ketamine offers a chance for rapid symptomatic relief.
Low doses of the drug are administered very slowly through an IV or by a nasal spray.
It works on the neurotransmitter glutamate in our brain very uniquely. So that's how it helps alleviate depression and differently than other options.
Dr. Puri says some patients may feel better after just one treatment. Others might need a series of them.
When my depression was really, really bad at first, it was the best 45 minutes of my week. It took about 2 sessions for me to start seeing the results of it and start seeing like positive effects from it. I started to want to do stuff, but I was excited to have people over, converse with them, eat dinner. Food started to sound better. Just normal life didn't seem as overwhelming.
You highly recommend it?
I do. At the right place. I think there are places that don't have it as regulated.
While ketamine is not approved by the FDA as a treatment for psychiatric conditions, including depression, Dr. Puri says it is safe. And though it may not be for everyone, he advises people who think it might help them to do their homework first.
I really encourage people to pick places that have mental health expertise and that have a history of doing these treatments, so that you know that you're getting that proper evaluation and guidance for your treatment course. And keeping in mind about, we're not just here for your ketamine, but we're here for your wellness.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Solutionaries. If you'd like to see even more solutions, we have so many extraordinary stories on our YouTube page. It's youtube.com/Solutionaries. And if you know of a problem and you're looking for solutions or you would like help, scan the QR code. We want to hear from you. That's all for now. Thank you again so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.